Okay, so there's this show from the early 2000s called Mind Freak, where a magician, Chris Angel, which by the way, he spells it Criss. So I want to say Christ, but it's Chris. And I always thought he spelled it Chir. He does not spell his name like Chris. He spells it like Criss. No, he does spell it. But either way, crazy. So we're a magician, Chris Angel, who is this lean man, always with the pickaboo chest, sleek black hair, half down, the other half spiked, giving you Hot Topic, Route 21 realness. He goes around performing these mind-blowing tricks. But it was this particular episode or a trick that like made me say, I don't think this show is real. I don't think any of this is real. Okay, it takes place in the middle of this field with a handful of onlookers. Chris pulls this rando, quote unquote rando, from the crowd, telling them that he can pull this lady apart. Like literally apart. He tells one onlooker to hold onto the lady's arm and another to grab the lady's legs while she's stretched out on this bench-like slab. And so she's laying on this wooden little slab, whatever, and one's like holding, and she's like laying down her back, and one person's holding her legs, and the other person's holding her arms, and she's stretched out. And Chris Angel goes over and he taps. I guess she taps like her hips or her stomach, I guess, to loosen her up. And then he tells the two people who are holding her, he tells them to like pull her apart. And sure enough, the lady literally comes they literally pull her apart, and her legs are sitting upright. Her legs are like sitting upright, while where her top half is like crawling away, screaming, like just like off in the distance, like she's just crawling away in this open field. And just screaming like at the top of her leg, just like, what do you call that? Just like literally that arm, like maneuvering, just like crawling away. And like onlookers are scared, and some are like shaking, some ran away. And I'm just like laughing, and I'm like, yeah, this is so damn goofy. And I think honestly, I think that was the last time that I watched that show. I don't remember any other episodes after that. I remember seeing like him briefly doing stuff, but yeah, that was like the last time I actually like thought of Chris Angel. But then David Blaine came around, this brown man who, at least for me, sensationalized street magic in the States. And I was like, oh wow, this is so refreshing. Like, how great is this? And he has a new show coming out on National Geographic. Well, actually, he does have a show on National Geographic, and it's his journey showcasing performers and their talents around the world, like just like everywhere, like from China to like the smallest village in, I think it was India. It was like he's just like going around the world. David Blaine, is just going around the world, just showing all these like. They're not even magicians. It's these crazy skills and talents and performances that he's doing, that he's showcasing. And which had me like wondering, which had me thinking, like, were there any, are there going to be any black magicians or like African magicians? And were there any black magicians back in the day or like even present? So, this is episode 9. The story of Black Herman the Magician. Black Herman the Magician was not the first of his name. That belonged to Alonzo Moore, who was an apprentice to Walter Truman Best, whose stage name was Edward Marot, the youngest member of the famous French magician family, the Herman Magicians. Edward named himself the Prince of Magic, and after coming on his own, Alonzo would give himself the title Prince Herman. He would perform sleight of hands. Okay, so just to catch up, Alonzo Moore was the first, person to have, like the first black person to have like the name Herman. So we're going to call him Prince Herman. So Prince Herman performed sleight of hands, aka flashy card tricks on road shows. However, being a medicine man, and some say a con artist, that's their words, not mine, was his main moneymaker. Using his tricks, he will draw in a crowd and then he'll start selling his products. One of them being a potion, quote unquote potion, called Secret African Remedy. And it's a mix of alcohol and like spices. And how to use it or what it did was not mentioned, but the name was enough to sell. So, he's like, I got that African remedy for y'all. What does it do? I don't know. Just take it. Give me your money. I mean, it worked, obviously. He probably just like told them each what they wanted to hear. Like, what is this? Is this secret? Someone was like, is this secret African remedy gonna like bring me the love of my life? And he's like, yeah. And someone else is like, is this secret African remedy gonna get me a job? And he's like, yeah. It's like, whatever you want to hear, just give me your money. So, oops. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so Alonzo, aka Prince Herman, will go on and tour minstrel shows with the Hugo brothers. I hope I pronounced this right, but Batista and Pablo Antonio Ugo, also known as the Giants of the Alps, who were literally recognized for being 7 feet and 7 inches tall. To their credit, it was the 18th century, and this is very exciting to people seeing like these giants, quote unquote giants. So, I mean, once again, make that money, okay? Like, oh, you're gonna pay me and just stare at me for being like abnormally tall? Go ahead. But unfortunately, this is where Prince Herman's story comes to an end. He would pass away in 1914, placing the spotlight on his teenage apprentice, Benjamin Rucker. Ooh. So now we're gonna see the Black Herman that we know today. Born in 1892 in Amherst, Virginia, Benjamin was about 17 years old. Born in 1892 in Amherst, Virginia, I think that's how you pronounce it, Benjamin was about 17 years old when he became the apprentice for Prince Herman. Being taught basic tricks, he was more of the business side of the show. So like Alonzo, Prince Herman, he taught Benjamin once again, the sleight of hand tricks, but he was more handling the business side. So bookkeeping, taking up inventory, selling goodie bags to customers, and he was like, we need more of this. We need more of the secret African remedy. We need some more paprika, some pepper. Okay. So when Prince Herman passed away in 1914, Benjamin Rucker would be the second to hold the moniker or name Herman, and he gave himself the name Black Herman or Black Herman Magician. Magician. Pushing the envelope a bit further than his successor, Benjamin, now Black Herman, would take his road shows to eventually theaters, moving away from sleight of hands to more grand gestures. His shows were a mix of comedy, mind-reading tricks, variety acts, and all the way down to religious oratory, which I believe was like prayers. So he was doing everything, from so it wasn't just road shows. He was in theaters. He was selling at theaters. And it was just think of like Apollo, a night at the Apollo. And it's just like, and Black Herman, hosting, headlining, just all throughout. So, a devoted Christian, Herman's tricks were described as miracles from the Bible. But that didn't stop him from intertwining African and African American spiritual practices, like hoodoo. He said his escape from an impossible binding rope trick was taught by Africans who were invading slave traders. These narratives we used to build the character of Black Herman, and he'll later use it for his writings. Now, even though his performances were drawing in both black and white audiences, Jim Crow was still that dark cloud that hung over him and the South, the Deep South. Making a decision, Herman would take his act up north to Harlem. Making a decision, Herman would take his act up north to Harlem. Harlem, sorry. There he'll meet and befriend Jamaican politician Marcus Garvey, and said to be one of the most influential voices in the African American community, Booker T. Washington. Herman would go on to headline for Garvey for 4,000-seated attendees at the Liberty Hill Theater in their month-long tenure, where this time around his attendees were not just a mix of race but classes as well, all coming to see the great Black Herman. His growing notoriety did not disconnect him from his religion or the Black community, because some people start moving differently once the money and fame gets to them. Start forgetting where they came from, what they're about. I promise I won't get like that, you guys. Alrighty now. Black Herman, he will incorporate political messages and promote Black pride in his shows. He will make generous donations to churches who were vocal in the civil rights movement. A quote from writer Maria Smith: African American churches were vital to the success of the civil rights movement. They hosted mass meetings, were meeting points for rallies and marches, and provided much needed emotional, physical, moral, and spiritual support. End quote. And it didn't stop there. He will hire Black men and women to help with the shows, then would turn his profits to loans to future Black businesses. But it didn't stop there. Call it prediction or maybe an inside scoop. I don't know. That's none of my business. But Black Herman had a vision of a financial disaster and advised everyone to move their money into commodities, which are just raw materials used to create the products consumers buy. So when the stock market did crash, pause. He was like, I'm having this vision, that's so Raven style, like something's big's about to happen with our money, with the country's money, just not our money, everyone's money, and we need to just start moving your money back to us, like put it back into the community, right? So everyone's like, we gotta do what he says. Like, he is the great Black Herman. We take our little money, what we have, and place it back over here. So when the stock market did crash, the 1929 Black Friday stock market crash did happen, the Black community's money stayed within their circulation, which landed back in Black Herman's pockets and eventually back into the Black community. Because remember, he was giving out loans and it was just recycling. Everything trickled back to him. So just like he was on it, let's give that man a Wendy Williams style clap, 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 clap. He knew what he was doing. He was helping the community. And clap. Can you hear the clap? Clap, 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 clap. Da, 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 da. Go Wendy Williams and Black Herman show. But forget all that noise. This man was a genius. I mean, he advised well, and it paid off. As you can see, like I said, this created everything trickled back down to him. So, using his financial success, he was able to purchase a printing company, publishing his widely circulated book, Black Herman's Secret of Magic, Mystery, and Learnerman. A book that reveals magician tricks, astrology, lucky numbers, and potions and tonics when needed. This book was a semi-fictionalized autobiography on how he, or his character, Black Herman, came to be. Remember, like I said, he was already building up his character when he was coming off, right? So the African slave traders, how they try to like tie them up. He invaded it. He was taught by, them. I hope that makes sense. I kind of just got that all mixed up. But the story I told prior about the binding rope tricks and how he invaded them because he was taught by the African how to evade it, he used in his book. So yeah, so it kind of all the story. It's he has a lot of stories like that. So it was coming off as Indiana Jones, but instead of finding artifacts, he was learning about the tricks and skills. His stories were adventurous, thrilling, magical, and action-packed, with Herman himself being the smart, quick on his feet, noble being both humble and admirable. Because when you're writing your own story, why not add some razzle dazzle? It really is good. Like it had me I was reading the first few chapters. And I was like, is this real? Like this can he can mimic animals. It's very fascinating. But but like I said, that like of course, like he's playing up his character, and why not be razzle dazzle? I'll do the same. I mean, who's it hurting? Nobody. Okay, exactly. So one of the examples he wrote was he was born in the dark jungles of Africa, where an older woman with the gift of second sight told him he would be marvelous and bless anyone who's around with extreme good luck. He was even told that he will, quote, be the greatest magician ever lived, and his name would be Black Herman, end quote. I'm sure when Benjamin was writing this part, he was probably like, and they said I'd be the best, no, greatest magician ever lived, and no one would be after me, and that's on period. He's just going in on that typewriter, just shoulders just bopping along like, and they said I was the best, and no one else is gonna come after me, no, it's never gonna be no one like me, I'm the only black magician ever. Okay. His stories told how he gained/learned his skills. When younger, he ran away from home. He lived in the woods for a food source. He would mimic other animals to draw them in and then kill for food. This would translate to his amazing animal impersonation skills and as well as his ventriloquist skills. So one of the passages, he said that when he was younger, he ran away and he would hide in the woods, and to draw the animals near him, just to draw them in, he will mimic their sounds, and when they got close, he will capture them, which always, like I said, translated to impersonation of animals and his ventriloquist skills. Ventriloquist. Ooh. As he got older, he traveled the world learning magical tricks and useful techniques. In China, he lived amongst thieves, where he learned to steal in plain sight. He was taught by the magicians in India what will be his signature act, a practice called deep sleep, aka death-like sleep, where they would not only be placed in a comatose state, but buried alive with the final act of them being resurrected days later, or just resurrected. Okay, yeah, I got it. Days later. So they'd be they're fall into this deep sleep to the point where you're like, oh my God, they think they're dead. And then days later, they'll pop back up, which is the most longest trick I've ever seen, because I would totally forget about that. I was like, oh my God, he died. And then I'll have to come back to the show. Is that what you're telling me? To continue the performance? Come back at this time to see. Well, is that how that work? Is that how that work? I'm guessing that's how they work. I think so, right? Because he'll play. I'm thinking way too long about that. Okay. But what he was really doing was he was slowing down his pulse and just kind of I guess, and then it'd be okay, he's dead, and then it'd just take off whatever it was, I guess the bandage or the tightening thing, and he'll kind of just his heart rate would come back up and be I'm back. So yeah. But like I said, you can check out your local library. I'm gonna find the book and read it myself, because I want to deep dive more into it. Okay. Now back to the story of we gotta go back to the story, y'all. Now back to the story of Benjamin Rucker as his life as a Black Herman. Not only was he able to publish his book, he was able to send health tonics, elixirs, incense, and step-by-step instructions on how to do your own hexes through the mail, just collecting coins from across the states. Cha-ching, cha-ching. But that cha-ching, cha-ching was soon turned into clink, clink, the sound of metal cuffs, because in 1925, Black Herman was sent to Sing Sing on a charge of fraud. Now, if you thought this was slower in his career, you are sadly mistaken. Herman would literally pick up where he left off because money needed to be made. So he was sent to Sing Sing and came back out without missing a beat. He's like, I got things to do. You think jail's gonna stop me? Unfortunately, just a few years later, on April 14th, 1934, during a performance at the Palace Liberty Theater in Louisville, Kentucky, Black Herman will collapse on stage. The attendees will have a mixed reaction, having many believe it was his signature burial and resurrection act, or death like sleep. Herman was moved to the boarding house where he and his ensemble were staying. It was reported and documented in his death certificate that this boarding house is where he'd be announced dead. So I don't know if he wrote this the night before or more of the morning of the show, but it was said that Herman had a premonition of his death and that he'll write a letter to his wife and pass away shortly after signing it. So I don't know where that falls into, if he collapsed on the stage and then was moved to the house. So I don't know what they was said, that he wrote this. He had a premonition and wrote the letter. I did not look more into that. Like I said, people were still believing this was an act. News circuits were promoting his resurrection at New York's Woodlawn Cemetery at Herman's private graveyard. And it didn't help that his assistant, Washington Reeves, made several thousand visitors pay a fee of 10 cents to poke pins at Herman's corpse to see if he was really dead. And I'm telling you, if I was Herman, I will haunt his ass for a week straight. Teach you to make a buck off me when I'm trying to rest in the afterlife. But I can see why, because, people were assuming that he was going to wake up after 3 days. I mean, they were used to this trick. So, but the fact that Washington went on to actually do this, knowing that his boss, his predecessor is dead, I don't know. Like I said, I'll haunt his ass. But, after realizing that he is, this is not a trick, Washington and a few other musicians will perform tricks at his service, closing out Black Herman's final act. After Black Herman passed away, Washington, just like Benjamin Rucker did before with Alonzo Moore, gave himself the moniker of Original Black Herman. I would have learned more about him, but after learning what he did at the funeral, I was like, no, thank you. I don't want to look him up. I'm okay. I'm going to stop at Black Herman. But the now original Black Herman would have competition, for there were imposters. One calling themselves the Black Herman II and another Black Herman Jr. But it wasn't just a moniker. Jazz musician Son Ray, a member of the electric band of Orchestra, was named after the musician. His parents gave him the name Herman Paul Blout. Black Herman left such a mark in the community. He was written as the second lead character in Ishmael Reed's neo-hoodoo novel Mambo Jumbo, which I have on my wish list. I would like to read that. Black Herman not only succeeded beyond his predecessor, but he left an impressionable stamp in his community. Proof of that being given the nickname the Black Houdini. What I really enjoy learning the most about Benjamin Rucker, and I'm going to be calling him Benjamin from here on out, that he didn't just play this musician. He was a civil rights activist, an ethnic nationalist, an author, entrepreneur, and so on and so forth. He created multiple revenues for himself. When reading a couple of chapters of his book, I was like, this could not be true. And then realizing, he's just playing his character. That's very clever. That's just him just constantly just working the magician part into his story. So clap, clap, clap on that. And then he spoke about astrology. instructions for elixirs and hexers to use. It just made the book. I was just like, I have to get this book. I have to get this book. He sounded so charismatic, and he knew how to hold the audience attention. I can only imagine how exciting it would have been seeing Black Herman promote his book or perform during that time. I mean, I'm telling you, the book itself is like, oh, this is exciting. And then like imagining seeing him actually promote. I'm telling you, I would have gagged. I'm like, oh my god, like he actually can do all this stuff. Like, I would have bought everything. I would have bought that Secret African Remedy. I would have got everything from him. The book, potions, tonics. But I do want the book. I can only read it online so far. I believe the library has it, and I think there's multiple reprints, but it doesn't have like the cover that I want. I want the original cover, but so I can just put to my collection. But keep it up. But moving forward, I honestly believe Benjamin would have made a great author. Now, whether he wrote the book or not, it's not for me to say. It was rumored that he couldn't read or write and used a ghostwriter named Young. Either way, like I said, it was a great book, so shout out to both of y'all. I'm sure he would have written more. Obviously, that was his intention. He did own a publishing company. But what solidified Benjamin was his dedication to the Black cause. And a prime example of what you give is what you receive. His financial gain was not only beneficial for him, but to others as well. He was able to hire Black workers, men and women, loan to Black businesses, which trickled back down to him, only for him to repeat the cycle. Black people needed to see themselves thrive and achieve on their own during the Jim Crow and the rise of civil rights was just so. Benjamin Rucker gave others the keys to build the world that they see fit. And not to be cheesy, but that's pretty damn magical. This has been episode 9, Black Herman the Magician. Thanks